So, when I was in the 6th grade, maybe like the 7th grade, I planned a field trip. And when I say plan, I mean like I picked the location, I designed flyers. Honestly, I found out about Microsoft Clip Art, and I just went crazy. I chose a date, I started inviting students, and I had my classmates really excited about everything. I mean, people were talking about it. It was giving startup, low-key. The only thing that I didn't get for my school trip was the school's permission. So, I didn't know that I had to get approvals. I didn't know that we needed buses or permission slips or anything like that. I didn't know it was a process. I just assumed that we would all take the local transportation like we were going to the mall or something. Honestly, I don't fully remember what the destination was, but I remember the energy I had around it. I want this to happen, so I'm gonna make it happen. And then the phone call started. Parents were calling the school, asking things like, will there be chaperones? Do they need to pack lunch? And so on and so forth. And when they asked the staff all this, the staff was kind of like, girl, what trip? What are you talking about? And eventually, it all found its way back to me. And I got called into the office. And honestly, I really thought I was done. Like, I was prepared for maybe a suspension, or at the very least, a strongly worded call home. I mean, I had confused everyone. And honestly, I had a lot of parents upset with the office staff who would always give me treats, but for some reason, after this, they stopped. And I can't imagine why. But anyway, so I catfished my entire school into thinking a trip was happening. And instead of punishing me, the principal of Maria Alvarisco Rogers Charter School, Ms. Cancel, called my mom into the office. She looked her into the eye and said, tu hija lo sabe todo. La estamos subiendo de grado. I went to a Spanish school, guys. Basically, I had already known the classwork, and the whole debacle was the icing on the cake. They wanted to officially promote me. So, just like that, I received an early promotion. I went to the next grade. So what I thought was going to be a reprimand became a reward. Not because I followed the rules, but because I saw something and I acted on it. I mean, it was bold, it was maybe even a little audacious, but I had a vision. And honestly, that's been my pattern ever since. This thing needs to happen. How can I make this happen? I'm going to make this happen. And that's how I ended up as a corporate creative. Because I didn't grow up even knowing what an art director was. And nobody in my family worked in advertising. I didn't have connections or receive formal training. I was kind of like figuring it out as I went along. But I didn't wait for a roadmap. I just kept trusting that inner voice from 6th grade me. I want this to happen, so I'm gonna make it happen. And that little girl, the one that planned an unauthorized field trip at 10 years old, that is the same girl that's carried this woman through the industry. And it's led me across the pond to this field trip from Newark, New Jersey to London, England. I've had creative vision long before anyone gave me permission. And I've been pitching concepts way before I even knew what an RFP was. And I feel like I've been impacting rooms that I wasn't qualified to be in because I showed up like someone who just believed in their ideas. So, no, I didn't take the traditional path, but I've always known how to see something that doesn't exist yet and get others to believe in it. And that instinct, the one that organized a whole field trip with no plan, that is what built my career. As a kid, I wasn't supposed to put that trip together. And as an adult, I really am not supposed to be here in this room with you all because I didn't follow the traditional creative route into this industry. So, let me explain. In advertising, there are creative roles, right? There's art director, copywriter, etc. Basically, you're the one helping shape the visual identity of a brand or a campaign. So that's everything from a Times Square billboard to a Super Bowl commercial to that little font on wheat paste ads that legal makes creative teams put so that clients' ass is saved. Now, I was doing all these things way before I knew it was a job. And if you happen to find out early enough that this is a job, there's a very specific route you're expected to take. First, you go to art school, or you go to portfolio school, right? That's about $40,000 and up. And we have to be real, that is not right after high school. That is after 4 years of undergrad. I mean, it's sometimes 5 if you switch majors or had a life event or generously extended your enrollment so that your professor's assistant wouldn't spiral from separation anxiety. You're welcome, Mr. Marcus. I was emotionally stabilizing the department. But, we listen and we don't judge. I may have taken the scenic route through university, and I know some of you all may have too. But anyway, by that point, you've got one loan stacked against the other just to maybe get a shot. Then you grind to build a book, a portfolio of speculative work to prove that you're valid, right? And then you get your work reviewed by people who've already made it or made it. You intern, often unpaid or for an unlivable wage if you're lucky. You assist, you network, you wear the right shoes, you say the right things, you meet the right people, and eventually, hopefully, you land a junior role. That is the formula. Now, let me tell you what my reality looked like. When I graduated high school, the average household income was $35,000. Now, my mom was a teacher's aide and my dad was a contractor. So there was no extra $40,000 laying around. Not for college and definitely not for post-grad. I mean, post-grad education wasn't even a conversation. So after graduating college, I couldn't afford to intern or work for free, obviously. And I didn't know anybody in this industry. So yes, no, I didn't come, in this game with a mentor or a polished portfolio. I came in with some taste, some timing, and a willingness to bet on myself. And once I found out that there was a job where I could imagine for a living, I kept thinking, I want this to happen for me, so I'm gonna make this happen. Now, my first agency, Wieden & Kennedy. Now, Wieden & Kennedy is really the place portfolio school darlings dream of. They recruited me through D&AD's New Blood Shift program. And do you think that someone who had no clue what an art director was knew who Wieden & Kennedy were? Absolutely not. Absolutely not. If you had asked me the creative force behind Nike's success, I probably would have said Dr. J's sneaker store on Broadway Market. So when I told people this, this agency just hired me, their eyes would pop out of their skull. You, really? And I'm like, what? Like it's hard. So obviously, we know that that's a very green way to respond. And in hindsight, part of the reason this fine specimen is in front of you today is because an independent, kick-ass agency saw something in me and took a chance on me. So I showed up. I showed up every day and I proved myself. And my copy partner and I ended up selling in $250,000 worth of work, just as residents. And this was one of many career catalysts for me. And it all started because I got a foot in the door. And after that, it came Droga 5, then after that came BBDO, and after that came Saatchi Saatchi. my resume became the kind that gets people talking. So when I tell folks where I've been, what I've done, etc., they feel some type of way. Some people are inspired, and some are just really low-key pressed. It really depends on the room. But I'm going to tell you the truth behind it all. 0. That is the amount of mentors that I had in the beginning. 0 name drop referrals. 0 moments where I looked at my resume and I thought, I'm perfect for this job. And yet, here I am, standing in front of you on stage at one of the most respected creative festivals in the world. So it's proof that the shortcut sometimes is the story. Because while most people were investing in portfolio school, I had to bet on myself. I did not have $40,000. So instead, I paid in late nights, in tinkering in Google Slides between unstable gigs, in cold emails where I was trying to sound professional when all I really had was potential. I guess what I'm trying to say is it's a different tuition, but it's the same degree. The path was not paved for me. I really had to freestyle it, and this is something that no one really talks about when you're entering this industry from the margins. You have to pitch who you are while you are still figuring it out. And that itself is not just creative work. That is instinctive work. And I was eager to do that work. I just needed an opportunity. And eventually, I found one. The industry identified a gap in creative talent, and D&AD created shifts for people like me. So it was a free night school where I could work during the day and then pursue my passion at night. Now, during the program, we went from agency to agency, like field trips, but for grown creative adults. So, except this time, I wasn't breaking the rules. I was actually invited in. We tackled real briefs from major brands, and that's when I realized that corporate and scrappy are really 2 different sports. So the program wasn't just giving me a shot. It gave me structure, it gave me language, it really gave me a creative system to plug my ideas into. And that is what carried me through every war room and every creative review. Like, what is instinct, if not creative strategy? When you do not have a map, right, your instinct becomes the GPS. And this talk isn't necessarily about skipping steps. It's about what happens when the steps were never built for you, but you decide to climb anyway. Because it turns out, yes, there is a job where you get to think up, wouldn't it be cool if ideas all day? And that is serendipitous to me because that's my strength. So a life where I got to do that for a living, I really had to make that happen. So what I'm going to do is walk you through how you can make it happen. No blueprint, no portfolio school, no inside track. Now, the steps I have, step 1, have the nerve before you have the name. I didn't know what an art director was, right? I had no clue. But I knew what good art sounded like. I knew what it looked like. I knew what it made you feel. I couldn't stop reimagining everything around me. Music videos, album covers, commercials, everything. I wasn't necessarily groomed for this role, but I did see myself in it. So before anyone gave me a title, I gave myself permission to think and behave like a creative. So first things first, affirm your creativity. Now, step 2, make something out of nothing, rinse and repeat. So I didn't have a fancy, well-curated portfolio. I had scrappy decks. I had grassroots events that I threw. I had mood boards I crafted from like a Pinterest tab or 10 that I left open. But I didn't wait for the perfect opportunity to find me. I made what I wished I was hired to make. And all those scraps became a body of work, and all those little projects became receipts. They were the things that I would light up about in interviews. And they may not have shown craft just yet, but they showed passion, hard work, and character, which is actually what agencies want to see. Step 3, sound like yourself until they recognize your voice. So at first, when I first got into the industry, I tried to sound professional. I tried to sound polished, I tried to sound palatable. Basically, I tried to replicate the cadence of my portfolio school peers, and it really never worked out. It never landed well. And these steps aren't just the things that I feel like I did right, but they're what I wish I had known not to do. And it wasn't until I started speaking in my own creative voice that things started to shift. Once I stood firmly in, this is who I am, once I accepted my own creative cadence, then the right doors opened up for me. So, next, step 4. Say yes before you feel ready, and then rise to it. So when I was starting out, I didn't have the resume that necessarily made recruiters feel safe. I had potential, and when I was asked to show up, I didn't just show up, I showed out. It's hard to show up every day ready to contribute your best creative self, but it's absolutely possible. And it gets easier the more you learn. So you have to ask stupid questions. KPI, what is that? RTB doesn't stand for really talented baddie? Who knew? Respect that there's a whole language and system behind this industry. And while you may have raw talent, pairing it with that knowledge is what unlocks real momentum. So read those books that the old bearded white guys wrote. They know stuff that you do not know, and they will never shut up about it anyway, so you might as well soak up the game. Now, last step, step 5. When opportunity finds you, don't flinch. When I was recruited, I really didn't understand how big that moment was. I didn't get the gravity of it. I was just ready to work. I was just ready to get to work. And it turns out, I didn't need to know their legacy to build my own. Every big agency that hired me did so because my work spoke to them. And how could my work speak if I wasn't present to begin with? Or how could it speak if I backed down from something that felt so much bigger than me? So you have to show up scared. You have to show up nervous. You can show up with your shirt inside out because you're rushing. You can show up late because you ran into that cute professor's assistant from college at happy hour and stayed out too long. Shout out to Mr. Marcus. But that's not the point. Just keep showing up. Life will try to get in the way. This is an unconventional path for a reason. And you cannot put your best foot forward if you're not even in the room to begin with. Even your most mediocre ideas can't be massaged into something great if you're not there with the team to help mold them. So push through and stay present and keep showing up. So all in all, here's what actually matters. I didn't ask for permission. I just kept thinking, this needs to happen for me. How can I make this happen for me? I'm going to make this happen. And you don't need a polished portfolio to have a point of view. Survival mode is what builds that strategic muscle that this industry thrives on, and your instincts are your intel, and don't let anyone tell you different. So if nobody built those steps for you, you can build a ramp, you can take an elevator, you can build a slide, you can take an escalator, you can build a damn trampoline. It really doesn't matter, you get the point. How you get there is really between you and the universe. But the uncharted path becomes clearer when you remind yourself, this needs to happen, so I'm going to make this happen. Thank you.